Welcome back, Airbnb family, for another live stream about revenue management. We're going live naturally in 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, Airbnb family. I've got some hard truths for you that will make you more money. If you have an Airbnb listing, you need to watch this video because we're talking price. Price gets you booked. It's not the only thing that matters, but it's how we make our money. Now, I've got a cold, hard truth for you. The first one is not the best one, but today, let's open with, if your date's unbooked, your price is wrong. Stick around to the end of the video because the last truth I have on this little list is going to blow your mind. It's going to be great. My name's Sean Rocky Cheech. I've taught Airbnb for 8 years. My students have made over $1 billion. Revenue management is my favorite topic matter. They've even given me a button here on YouTube for pricing strategy. When you type my name in, you'll see a pricing strategy button by YouTube. It's the only button they've ever given me, which is cool. So let's talk about this concept of empty dates and inaccuracies. And we're going to cover a broad scope here. What's up? So you could have an empty date today. You can have an empty date 9 months from now, right? You could have it 2 years out. So there's going to be a lot of nuance in this. And the first thing I want to add into this, as we start to break down how you guys can improve your prices and make more money, is for every empty date that you have, you want to ask, does this date have data? Okay, and there's going to be multiple places that we can get the data. Let's say the date is a Tuesday. Your empty date's a Tuesday. Here's the data that we have. Do you have bookings on Tuesdays in the future? What are they booked for? Do you have bookings on Tuesdays in the past? What are they booked for? And also, when do these book? How far in advance do they book? Do you have competitors with empty Tuesdays as well? What are they priced for? Do we have softwares that think your Tuesday should be a certain price? I've been making videos in this vehicle because sorry guys for this side tangent. Somebody just asked a question why I'm making videos in the car. My gym's right here, right? And I'm all about the gym. And this truck, I bought cash to do a bunch of Airbnb makeovers. You guys can be seeing videos for those Airbnb makeovers, right? That's why I'm in the truck. I'm ADHD. I do videos when I'm inspired. You're getting a pricing strategy video right before I go into the gym and get some gains. So if you like the gains, hit the like button. Thanks, guys. So with that said, these types of data that you have allow us to decide what our prices can be. And all that data is still inconclusive. The only time that we know, we can't even know if we're right, you will know if you have a booking, and that means that you weren't overpriced, right? That's the only thing that we know once we have a booking, is that our price was not too high, because the game of price is like the show the price is right. You have to get as close to the right perfect price without going over. If you're $2 over on price, you don't get a booking. And now here's the thing about missing. If you miss on Airbnb with one of the empty dates, you don't know if you miss by an inch or if you miss by a mile. If your price is $500, you don't know if your price needed to be $498 or if it needed to be $198 to get booked, because 500 was wrong. That's all we have. So then we have to start to extrapolate these other bits of data. And I'm gonna go back over them again. You have past data, you have future data, you have competitor data, and then you have software data. Okay? These are the data. Now, I wanna repeat this because I threw a lot of high level into a very short period of time, so we have to unpack this. I said, let's imagine your date was a Tuesday. Right? The fact that it's a Tuesday is individual and matters, because if your empty day was a Friday, we'd repeat the same logic, but we'd look for Fridays instead of Tuesdays. Because if I have a booking on a Friday, I can't say, oh, my Tuesday needs to be $300 because I got booked for 300 on Friday. A lot of you already know this to be true. But also, when I ask, how far in advance did the Tuesday book? If I got $150 on a Tuesday, but that person booked like 6 weeks in advance, right? And I have 3 days to get a Tuesday booked, I can't be confident that I'll get 150 because I was hanging out at some price for the last 6 weeks and I didn't get booked, right? So how far in advance somebody books can also tell you how much you can rely on that price if your scenario is a similar or different scenario. And here's what's really fun. I'm gonna draw it on screen. Your pricing strategy will look like an arc shape. All right, not an even Mike McDonald's arch, but it'll still have an arc shape. And what I mean is your highest prices will never be the farthest into the future when you get booked. You might have what I call a golden window, which is your most premium nightly rates between 30 days and 90 days, okay? Mega mansions might look more like 90 days to 200 days, okay? Or something like that. Now that golden window, these are the dates that you can get the highest ADR. But I also can guarantee you, you cannot both get your highest ADR prices and 100% occupancy in your golden window most of the year. And what I mean is, if you're capable of getting $800 a night in this 45-day golden window, you're also not going to get 30 days of occupancy, right? You're going to get some, but you won't get it all. So this matters because the dates leading up to the golden window, like a year from now, might actually get you better prices than like this week. Like if I'm trying to get a booking this week, I might have to drive my rates down, right? But if I'm trying to get a booking a year from now, I might have to drive my rates down compared to my golden window. But like if I'm at $100 today for today, I don't have to be $100 a year from now, right? I can charge more. And this is the concept of zones in my world. I teach my students to build 5 zones, and the golden window tends to be the 3rd. Now seasonally, trust me, I'm gonna put this all together, guys, and you can always play this video back, okay? Seasonally, your golden window will change, right? So let's say peak season. Let's say your peak season's June and July. Well, getting all of your bookings 2 months out might be your like typical MO. You love getting booked 2 months out. You feel safe. But if June and July is peak season and you're on the coast of like Milwaukee, Chicago, you're on the water, and everybody else is getting booked, why be booked 2 months in advance? I'd like to take this part slow because I want you all to learn something from this. My diabolical strategy for peak season, my evil strategy for peak season, is to overprice my listings where I know that they're not going to get booked, okay? Where I absolutely know they're not going to get booked, because I want my competition to set their rates and they go to shop and they go, hey guys, please book me for 1,000. And I get to see who books for 1,000. And I can see how fast they book for 1,000. So if June and July are my peak season, and right now, like let's say it was May, let's say this is last month, I can then look at my competition and see who's succeeded at getting booked at a rate, who's still unbooked. And in peak season, I actually count on all my competitors on the water to completely book. That's my long shot that I'm going for, but it actually happens in peak season. So now what happens, I could have got booked at $1,100 a night 2 months in advance. But now that everything's gone, there's a Roach Motel down the street, and then there's a $9,000 a night mansion that's unbooked. I have all this range now. I could actually get booked at $2,500 a night because all my competitors are now gone. I'm no longer compared to them when somebody searches. Please listen to this and allow this to change the way that you look at how you price your listing, okay? This is so important. If somebody searches in your market and they search and they see 100 listings, and they see good listings and they see medium listings, and they see that there's some price congruence in them. There's like a band of prices, and all the houses with pools are 800 to 900, right? They're going to expect this pattern to continue. And if your house with a pool is like 1,300, they're going to disregard you because everything else is 7 to 9. But if it's peak season and all those get booked, when somebody goes to search an Airbnb, that data is no longer there. They see an ugly house for 600. They see yours for 2,000. They see a mega mansion for 5,000. They see a castle nearby for 9,000. All of a sudden, the data available that informs their decision is absent of all these $700 to $900 listings that now have gotten booked. See, if you were priced well, you could have been booked 2 months in advance, but you did not like wait until you had the most advantage in peak season, right? And this is exactly the opposite of how we want to play in slow season. Who here can imagine what we're going to do if we've got to change our approach for slow season, right? What we find is that $700 to $900 band of like listings, all with pools, we don't want to get stuck in that list last minute in slow season. We don't want to end up there because we won't get booked, right? We know this. So if all of our relevant competition exists between $600 and $900 a night, we will 1 year in advance. I want you guys to go all the way future in your calendar, and I want you to list yourself at like 510 or even like 490 at the worst, right? That adjustment of 20% should be way more than enough. But a year out, if all the people that would normally take your lunch are 600 to 900 and you could get booked at 5, and you can get your whole calendar blasted for $500 a night, you don't end up in slow season with open calendar dates when all of the competition now are coming down, because those same listings, when slow season arrives, they will be 300 to 550 a night, all of them, right? And now you have to fight with the same quality of listing, but they're repriced at 3 to 5. Now you'd have to go down to 250 to have any reasonable argument to get booked. So instead, be proactive. A year out, drop 20% while everyone still doesn't consider that they should drop their rates. And remember, most people are on pricing softwares, and pricing softwares don't take game theory or probabilities into account. And now this is the other concept I would like to try to blow your mind. Could you give the video a like as I try to blow your mind on probability odds? I'm gonna make this less, like, not like the movie 21 where these kids like master blackjack. I'm not gonna make it that difficult, okay? I'm gonna give you a couple examples. So if there are 100 listings and there are 5 customers, 5 people will get a booking, right? That means that in a vacuum, anybody has a 5% chance of getting booked. But let's say we know one of those customers will absolutely book the cheapest listing. The cheapest listing now has a 100% chance of getting booked, right? It requires us understanding the customer. And if any of you have experience as Airbnb hosts, you should know enough about your market to know these things. If you don't know enough about Airbnb to tell what's left or what's right, I've got a link for my mentorship, Cracking Super Host. I've got 7 coaches. We've got students in 42 countries. Like I said, they've made $1 billion. I'll look at your calendar and I'll tell you what to do. And I'll look at your competition. I'll tell you what they're doing. And we can figure it out from scratch. I'll hold your hand. We'll make it work. But if you can understand your customers and what they look for, then you can understand really if you have a chance of getting booked at all at your current rate. And then you can start to make adjustments. If there's 100 listings and only 5 customers, we need to make sure that we're not stuck in some heat of listings where like we all have an equal shot of getting booked. We don't want that, right? So here's a way to play like a cool game of probabilities then. Let's say one of those customers we know is gonna be like a 2-week or longer stay. One wants the cheapest listing, one wants a 2-week or longer stay. Well, what we can do is we can use a rule set and we can actually make a new discount only for things longer than a week, right? And only for your winter season, you could take a rule set, change your weekly discount, even make a 14-day discount with a rule set and apply it to your worst dates and give a valuable 14-day stay. So you still have an expensive weekend. You still have well-priced weekdays, but in the hypothetical scenario that a person wants a 14-day stay, you now have the best price, but only for 14 days or longer, right? Now we have the game of probabilities is starting to unfold. And I want to look at the game of probabilities as end of month revenue. I hope you're following along. And if this gets a little tough, sound off in the chat, all right? Because I am doing this from a truck, Ford F-150 cash car. So since you guys brought it up earlier. So one end of month scenario, we get a 14-day stay, right? That 14-day stay, we make $2,000. We struggle bus on the other 14 days and we make another $200, right? That's $2,200, right? That's one scenario. But let's say your weekends are like $400 a night, right? And you get 3 of your weekend dates booked for $400 in slow season. That's $1,200. Now you also still struggle bust to get other bookings, but since you had more total dates available, you got another, instead of $200, you got $400 in extra revenue, right? Now you have your $1,200 plus 4, you made 16. So not having a 14-day discount, you struggled. You got a couple weekends booked and some weekdays, you got $1,600. The one where you had the 14-day discount, you now had $2,200 because you got a $2,000 booking and $200 extra. You have 2 potential outcomes. And now if we knew in advance that these end scenarios would exist, you would absolutely be leaning on a 14-day stay. That would be your plan. We never know if we're going to get the 14-day stay though. We don't know for sure, right? We only know once we win the booking. So what we do, not just in slow season, guys, this is something we need to do all year round, is we look at these potential outcomes and try to make sure that we like all the potential outcomes, but we also have to weigh the probability. Because, let me be dramatic, you would like in slow season for a prince of Saudi Arabia to call your personal cell phone number and say, I love your place, I want to give you $200,000 for the month. That's what you would like. It's not going to happen. The probability is zero. So on Airbnb, what's the probability that we can get a multi-week stay? What's the probability that we can get someone to book our weekends at a premium rate? Season to season, this change. Slow season, we're not going to get a premium rate on the weekends, right? And getting a multi-week stay could be the best outcome. So now if you drop your weekend prices too much in slow season, you just drop your rate without making it a multi-week stay, you could get somebody who books for 2 days, gets a really cheap price on your weekend, and now you can't get the 14-day stay because you overcommitted to just cheap rates like on the daily. So in slow season, we want to protect our individual nightly rates a bit, so that way we don't just start giving away cheap. We don't want to give away cheap days without first trying to get longer stays. And then if we get a 14-day stay, we can start to discount around it. But we want to still have both potential outcomes. And for me, in the scenario that I don't get the 14-day stay, I actually want my first short stay to be expensive. So I try to keep my rates up in slow season and then make all of my discounts week longer. Because if I have to get a 3-day stay in slow season and potentially screw my whole calendar up, that 3-day stay better be at a premium. That's really what I'm looking for, right? Now in peak season, let's play the probabilities math in peak season instead. What's the likelihood of me getting 2-day and 3-day stays at a premium price? Really, really high, right? If I gave a 14-day discount and somebody booked for 14 days, would that actually hurt my end of month revenue instead? Quite possibly, right? Let's say we did 30% off of a 14-day stay, off of your rack rate, right? But in peak season, you were not only going to get booked at rack rate, but you found out that you're undercharging in the first place, right? So now after watching this video, you raise your prices a bit, you remove all your discounts, and you get 2-day and 4-day long stays all month in your peak season, and you make like $10,000. But if you allowed a 14-day discount, you gave 30% off of that, off of half your month, that's $5,000. You'd give a $1,500 discount, and now you would max out at $8,500. But let's say you got 2 separate 14-day stays. Now you actually only made $7,000. So in peak season, discounting a 14-day stay to get a longer stay actually costs you money because the market is so full of small reservations that'll pay more, that to get a longer reservation at a discount actually removes your top of line opportunity, right? But in slow season, there's less customers. So we want the one booking we get to be the longest booking because we don't like the probability that the probability odds of us getting 6 or 8 customers in slow season is really low. So if we're only going to get 2 customers, we want them to be longer ones so that our ADR average, we're removing all those empty days by giving them a real sweet spot, right? And so if in peak season, I wanted to still have 2 outcomes, I would raise my prices even more. I mean, it sounds kind of insane, but I raise my prices even more. I still allow 1 night and 2 night stays, but my price is like 50% over the data. And remember, we got 4 points of data: past data, what we've been booked for last season, any future data for any future bookings that matter in peak season, what our competitors are priced at is very valid in peak season, and then what software thinks we can get booked at. So let's say Price Labs wants you to charge $1,000 a night. Well, actually charge $1,400 or $1,500, and then if you're at $1,500 a night, then you can actually put a 3-day or 5-day discount of 33%. So now, if somebody wants your normal high rate, they have to book for 3 or 5 days. If somebody wants to book for 1 day, they'd have to pay 50% more and pay $1,500. Now, this is another thing that's going to blow some of your guys' mind if you're still paying attention, because this is a cool dramatic example. There are events like Carnival in Brazil. Yeah, well, VRBO wants you to know that Airbnb is not the only one, and pricing strategy goes everywhere. But if I said VRBO pricing strategy, no one would watch the video because it's keywords and stuff, right? Maybe somebody would watch the video. Maybe I'm being an idiot. But yeah, you can price on VRBO just the same, by the way. And VRBO gave me this shirt. They're very, very nice people. And VRBO is arguably better than Airbnb. The guests have been better lately. So there are events called like Carnival in Brazil, and they ramp up over the course of 14 days. Now, people like Leonardo DiCaprio are going to Carnival. And not just famous people, but there's plenty of people worth hundreds of millions of dollars that want to take a helicopter in and get the hell out on their private jet once they're done. A lot of people for Carnival will set a minimum length of stay of 5 days or 7 days. So that way, all of the big Carnival dates, they get as many of them booked as possible, because now, think of it like this. The 2 weeks of ramp up to Carnival itself, the meat of Carnival days, right? And so now people booking earlier want to stay through Carnival. And so anytime that those Carnival dates are booked, the lead up dates are no longer worth money anymore. Kind of like your weekend, right? If your Friday and Saturday is booked, your Thursday's probably not going to be booking at the same high rate as if they booked Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Or your Wednesday's not going to get booked at a high rate the same way as if they booked Wednesday through Sunday, right? The moment Friday, Saturday's gone, Wednesday, Thursday lose some value, right? So in this way, with Carnival, the moment that the meat of Carnival is booked, the 2-week ramp up is dead. So a lot of people put a 5 or 7 day minimum, but that's actually not the best game theory approach. If you could make $10,000 in 7 days of Carnival, then why don't you just list the 3 main days for Carnival at $10,000, okay? And then you make the lead-in days cheaper, right? But then the lead-in days have a minimum length of stay setting that you change using rule sets. So now if somebody wants to book 4 days or 5 days before Carnival, their length of stay has to be at least 5 days. If someone wants to book 8 days before Carnival, their length of stay has to be at least 8 days. Now, all of these days are cheaper, and you can use length of stay discounts to manipulate this, but when you make your 3 days available for just 3 days, even though it's highly expensive, if you allow somebody to book for just 2 or 3 days, but at the price of $10,000, you may get someone who's a professional athlete, super famous. Your listing can be found. And so what happens is, like, a real estate agent or travel agent that represents someone famous finds your listing because it showed up in search for a few days, where if you had a 7-day minimum, it wouldn't even show up in search. And you get contacted by Taylor Swift's representative to stay just 3 days for Carnival because you're the only thing of quality that allowed 3 days. This game theory approach to allow short stays at an insane premium allows you to show up in search when everybody's too worried about guarding the number of days, because they want to make sure that they maximize the revenue, and they think that they have to achieve that by forcing someone to book all 14 days of Carnival. And this happens all over the place. There are so many different events that start on a Wednesday and on a Sunday. And then people think that the only way they're going to make the most money is by forcing a Wednesday through Monday something reservation. No, just double your price and let somebody book for just 2 days. There are people where money does not matter, and you kill the top end by allowing somebody to book for 3 days for 10 grand. Now it's cool. All those other days leading up to Carnival, they're unbooked. And yeah, they're worth trash compared to what they used to, but you still got your full ring on only 3 days. If you made 100% of your revenue goal on 3 of your 14 days, it doesn't matter what you sell the other 11 for, right? But what you have that other hosts don't have, if you follow this strategy, and I want you guys to look for every opportunity to do what I'm trying to tell you to do. Look for a way to have multiple runouts on your calendar that all lead to your revenue goals. Right? You could have a revenue goal of 10,000 for the month, and that revenue goal could include you just booking weekends, 2 or 3 day weekends only for 10,000, and then maybe you have to get like 5 weekdays. You fill in the gaps, right? But then also you can make it so that way there are 5-day discounts or 7-day discounts that allow people to book ranges of dates that you're highly valuable, because you're not going to get Tuesday or Wednesday booked anyway. So you start doing these really fun length of stay discounts, and you could even do them just on weekdays only to drive down your weekday prices. And that way you can get like a 10-day stay, and then you get a couple weekends and you still hit your revenue goal, right? But let me back out with what I'm saying too. We then also want to know what our most likely outcome for success is. Because even though it would be cool to get 4 weekends at 3 days each at 10 grand, we may not be able to achieve it. And that's why we need to try to plan another way to get all of our bookings. And now this is where the last truth of the video comes in, guys. I think I hit everything else I wanted to tell you. This is me now. This is me. I've completely scrapped my editing budget to do live streams because the algorithm changed and I just needed to figure it out first. But we're gonna get back to high budget videos here soon. So yeah, we've talked about probabilities and past data. Price isn't everything. Price is a piece of the greater wheel of cheese. I'm from Wisconsin, so let me say the wheel of cheese, please, thanks. It's a piece, right? Now, distribution, like VRBO, is one of the other factors. Total exposure, right? So if you're priced at $1,000 and you get 5 views, man, I don't know if I can get booked at $1,000 if I only have 5 people look at my listing. But if I have 1 million views, then I might get booked at 1,000. So total distribution, total impressions allows us to have a higher price because our conversion per total views can be lower. If I've got a 1% conversion, I need 100 views to get a booking. If I have a 10% conversion, I need 10 views to get a booking, right? Slow season is like the 10% conversion. Peak season is like the 1. We have more impressions because peak season has more demand, so more eyeballs. Now, if we want more eyeballs, and we're not in peak season, more distribution. Marriott Homes and Villas and VRBO, Booking.com, your own direct booking site. Get a Google Business and get a pin down where if somebody's searching for accommodations on Google Maps, you show up. That's an impression, right? These are things that we can do. Not only distribution and price now, the 2 parts of the equation, but also the aesthetic of the listing. Now, if any of you are in a really competitive market, please not necessarily like the video, but sound off in the comments, represent here, because this is for you. In the most competitive markets, being a pretty listing is kind of the bare minimum, right? Being aesthetic, good photos, clean listing, good furniture, it's kind of the bare minimum in these really competitive markets. So now, some people in Oklahoma City can just do a good job with the furnishing and they'll be one of the best, right? And that is the other point, right? They are at the upper tier of the aesthetic for the market. But in Miami, you could be beautiful, but you're just still one of everybody else is beautiful too. Okay, sorry, we're back. The one with personality wins when everything is beautiful, okay? So now, if you're in a highly competitive market, not only do we have to have good aesthetic, but we have to find a way to cut through the noise. Now, people used to think that this was amenities, that amenities would cut through the noise. Yeah, back when only a few people had hot tubs, you could ride on a hot tub, right? Back when only a few people had plant walls and saunas and murals, you could get away with that. Back when only a few people had 6-bedroom properties and everybody else was doing private rooms, you could get away with size, right? But the world has evolved where there's plenty of people with amenities. There's plenty of people with size. There's plenty of people with locations, right? Yeah, guys, if you want notifications for these live streams, you got to hit the bell and follow all, because I'm not planning these live streams. I just throw them up and say, hey, what's up, guys? Because I'm about to go to the gym, right? So please hit like, follow, hit the bell if you want to hear these live streams hit. So then, if everybody else is pretty, how do we cut through the noise? And what I found is light gimmicking really, really works. My newest listing here in downtown Dallas is 101 Dalmatians themed. That is a nod at nostalgia, because down there a lot of women and daughters come for cheer competitions and stuff. And so because I know the dynamics of my travelers, a lot of female and female mother-daughter companion kind of things, 101 Dalmatians can be fashionable, it can be feminine, and it can be a callback to something nostalgic. And it wasn't expensive for me to do, but I think it's gonna slap, and we're gonna find out, right? I also have a property in Dallas here in Turtle Creek that's completely orange. We talk about that. And I went with that because no one would ever do that, right? And I just took a color theory approach. What is everybody else doing on Airbnb, my neighborhood? There's a lot of blue. So what did I do? I went orange, right? And I had a blast with it, and it's working out. One of my students is building a property in the Florida Keys in Marathon, right? And we're looking at all the competitors, and we're spending $2 million on this build out. He's like, should I do a rooftop deck? Should I do a pool? What should I do here? And I'm looking at your competitors and their amenities and which ones are booked. We found certain amenities book more than other ones, but at that price point, I'm we probably shouldn't leave anything off the table. So if your budget is tight, build this amenity first and plan in your build to be able to make the change to add the next amenity later, right? So you're actually going to do one amenity in your initial build out, but make sure that you're able to add the next one, right? I'm not going to tell you what I told him to build in what order, because that was for him. One of my students in Tennessee, we found a city where if you have a rooftop deck, even if it's not pretty, that rooftop deck, you'd make an extra 40% revenue. Your revenue would go from 65 to 110,000-ish, just for having kind of a cheesy, ugly rooftop deck. Another one of my students, we found that the Globo Gym property on the lake here in Lake Wonderful is what we're calling it for the sake of these videos to keep it private, because we're doing a home sale out there and we don't want to screw up the sale. On Lake Wonderful, the $1 million property is not performing. But grandma's house next door, that's $300,000 less to buy the property. The photos are kind of ugly, dark, you know, everything's homemade. All the furniture looks like grandma's furniture. Has a ton of 5-star reviews and a ton of family things like paddle boards and games. And as photos really leaning towards polite family vacations, that one is completely full, and they're making $150,000 a year. They're making $150,000 a year because product market fit. They understood the customer, and they understood what photos they needed to show local Texas families that they could have a real family vacation on the lake. The $1 million property has a hot tub and a pool. It's very MTV Cribs. But the families traveling to Lake Wonderful want to actually be on the lake. They don't want to be in a pool looking at the lake. They actually want to get their kids out into nature. So these families that are booking, they want their kids in the lake doing outdoorsy stuff. And so grandma's house is booking because it's providing the, hey, let's go outside kind of experience, where the pool or the hot tub would maybe even hinder the point of the family vacation. How wild is that? So from the bottom up, if your photos are ugly or you don't have enough photos or your listing is plain, it's like all white and gray and blue and all the basics, you're not speaking to a consumer type. You might be lukewarm with everybody. Grandma's house has spikes of emotional interest with families. She's like probably completely disregarded by other people who only want to see pretty photos, but the offering of grandma creates a high emotional response with families that want to get out on the lake. And that is cutting through the noise. The rooftop decks in this one town in Tennessee gets a high emotional response from people who want to watch the sun go down and pregame before they go out to bars in Tennessee, right? That has a high emotional response rate. People who see my property where it's completely orange and it's monotone, some people think, oh, this is really cool chic, or their favorite color is orange, right? And if their favorite color is orange, I automatically win because nobody's doing orange. And I get that little slice. I am risking losing certain people. Like, men aren't going to book the Cruella de Vil 101 Dalmatians property with the dog spots. Like, unless the guy's a dog owner, right? And he owns Labradors or like Dalmatians or whatever, like a guy might do it. A couple might. Right? Couples might because the woman likes it, but I'm absolutely willing to walk away from a generic customer to try to get a high emotional relationship with the right customer, right? For my design. And so price is not everything, because every Airbnb host on the planet, as we evolve in this industry, is trying to up their game, to have a higher emotional relationship with some customers. And when we look at this at scale, if there's 1,000 listings, all 1,000 listings, if they're doing anything right at all, will eventually try to speak to a group. Like, you might have a chef's kitchen with all the best stuff. I've got a student in Florida. She got ripped off by another influencer and like was on the way to losing 50 or 80,000 bucks. And we did a series of phone calls, and we decided to take her property and make it Positano themed. In Florida, by Disney, we decided to make it Positano themed because of this natural part of her house. But there was that new movie, I think it was called Luca. If you guys watch Disney Pixar, and they just love Vespas, right? They're like, these mermaids want to drive a Vespa, right? And they come onto land. And so it's very like, you know, Amalfi Coast. So we did that theme, and we really leaned on the fact that the kitchen was so amazing that you could cook the best dinner. She had all the cool stuff. She had the sous vides, she had the bread hooks and all of it. And so we were really leaning on her kitchen as a way to speak to groups that would care about that, where every other listing in Disney was just really focusing on how immersive the kids' rooms could be, whether it was like a jungle gym or looked like it was Tatooine or looked like it was Harry Potter. All these themed rooms were cool, but there was amenities that were being underrepresented because everybody thought they understood the assignment, right? And so cutting through the noise could look like just having a better kitchen, could look like being the only one with high ceilings, could be the only one with really interesting or funky design, could be the only one with a rooftop deck, could be the only one with paddle boards for the kids instead of the hot tub, right? Price is not everything. Price is the final factor when you equate everything against each other, right? So let's close it with this. If there are 100 listings that are better or worse or have better market fit, because the listing may not be a better listing than yours, but they might make a better value proposition to the customer that is searching, right? So I, as a single-ish male, right, am searching, I'm gonna go on a vacation, right? I might find a listing more valuable because I can do my YouTube videos there, or it's got a gym, right? But a family who's searching might find another listing valuable because it has 3 bedrooms or 2 bathrooms or something, right? So it's not that the listing's more valuable, but it's more valuable to the eye of the beholder, the traveler, right? And so when we have 100 listings that are of different or various value propositions, okay, we need to find a way to speak to the individual to get like preference outside of price, and we do our best. And now there's 100 listings that are all making their value propositions, right? Because they don't want to compete on price. Well, now everything's set. Now that everything's static, price is the final lever, right? When you can't change the listing anymore, you can't add a hot tub, you can't repaint the walls, you can't knock down a wall and add a bedroom or whatever. Now, price is the final frontier. Price is not everything, it's the last thing. And if you find that you can't get booked by dropping your price, then everything leading to price was wrong. Because if you can't get booked at $70 last minute, that means that your listing was just not preferential outside of price, and you couldn't pay the person to take the thing, right? Price is the last thing. And if you can't get booked and you're dropping your price, then something on the way is broken, okay? It's blind squirrel gets a nut. So you still get bookings in peak season and stuff like that. I've got playlists on design, interior design, how to do the photos, pricing strategy, algorithms. I've broken down my knowledge base into pillars in my playlists. So go to my playlist. If you want to learn about price, playlist for that. If you want to learn how to do better interior design to make your place more pretty, I've got stuff for that too. Please keep educating yourself. I do believe we're going to end up in a really cool era because there's been a lot of washing out in some markets. A lot of people have quit. On the back end of people quitting is there's less of us and there's more guests relative, and we make more money. Thanks for watching this, guys. This was a long one. I didn't mean it to be 37 minutes of ranting about price, but I hope it was valuable. And if you found it valuable, please hit the like. And of course, I welcome you to subscribe and be part of this little family. But me and the Bucky's Cup, we're going to the gym. Thank you guys, as always, and I'll see you on the other side.